It's been almost a year since I picked up Samantha from the airport. She looked like shit, which I told her, which is about when she hit me in the shoulder as hard as she could. Miss you too, sis, I mumbled, rubbing my arm as we rode the moving elevator out and toward the parking lot. Did you talk to Brandon's family? I was going to, but I didn't have time, she said. She didn't look at me when she talked, and she was wearing those enormous sunglasses, the ones that covered half her face. I talked to his mum, I said, super briefly. She's happy you're coming. She mentioned how close you and Brandon were. Samantha groaned. Great, just great. I can't believe I'm back here. Well, I said, as we stepped off the moving sidewalk and headed toward baggage claim, past all the holiday travellers with their grim looks. I hope you brought your coat. It's going to be snowing. Samantha stopped and dropped her carry-on bag. She took off her sunglasses, and her eyes looked huge and terrified. What? It's going to snow? No, I laughed. Just messing with you. You should have seen your face. You looked like... I couldn't finish my sentence before she punched me as hard as she could and stormed off to the luggage retrieval. Driving home, I couldn't get over how weird it felt to be seeing her again. She was all balled up in the passenger seat, watching the familiar landscape drift by. It's so monotone here. I forget that sometimes. It's weird how when you live somewhere so different, the place you came from just remains the way it was. Everything is still the same here, she murmured, in a tone that was a mixture of awe and disgust. Except that, well, you know, except that Brandon's dead now. Just like Julie. Just like we'll die too. Everybody dies. But do you want to die like that? Do you want him to be the last thing you ever see? I didn't say anything. I didn't look at her. The radio was playing, rocking around the Christmas tree, but it was the Leanne Rimes version, and it sounded like garbage. He's not real, I finally said, and she started laughing. I spoke over her. He's made up. It's just a story. It didn't happen, Sam. Remember what the doctors said? It didn't happen. Tell that to Brandon and Julie, she said. See if they think that. Those were accidents, that's all. They weren't accidents. Or suicides. I don't know. It was something normal, not what you're talking about. If that's what you think, then great. Good for you, Matty. Glad you've got it together. All I know is that as soon as this thing is over, I am back on that plane and I'm out of here. We didn't speak for the rest of the drive. Mum and Dad were very happy to see Samantha, and she seemed happy to see them, but I didn't really care. I went up to my room and I just messed around on the internet for a while. Christmas was in 2 days. I heard my mum yelling downstairs at Samantha, "We'll finally have you home for Christmas." Reflecting on our earlier exchange in the car, I typed into Google, holidays plus increased suicide rates, but all the links said that it was just a myth. Anne, my girlfriend, texted me later that night. Her and a couple of her friends from work were going drinking and wanted to know if I wanted to come. Surprisingly, Samantha asked to tag along, and so we drove out to Charlemagne together, a divey little place with cheap pitchers and jukeboxes. Anne and Samantha immediately hit it off, which left me spending most of the night playing pool with Anne's co-worker. After an hour or so, I walked Anne out to her car. It was cold out, and all the stars were vibrating in the big sky above, Samantha really is nice, Matt. It was cool to meet her. Can't believe she lives in Singapore. Yeah, she loves it out there, I said. I'm glad you guys had fun. Can I ask you a question? Not if it's about what I bought you for a present. It's not that. Anne paused, and then added, although, I am glad you bought me a present. You always seem so unprepared. I nodded and smiled my best, don't worry at all grin. I, still had to buy her a present. It was something Samantha said. She told me something really weird happened 10 years ago. She said she didn't want to talk about it, but that I could ask you if I really wanted to know. What? I felt my body go cold. She said that? Are you okay? What happened? I wasn't sure how to start. Look, I never told you about this because it's really messed up, okay? Okay, Anne said. The street lights behind the parking lot lit her up in silhouette, her pale face like a snowflake in the artificial light. 10 years ago, Sam and her friend Julie, and me and my friend Brandon, we all went out together to go sledding. Brandon and I were 12, her and Julie 15. All four of us, we hung out a lot. Our neighbourhood was one of those new developments and most of the houses were still empty. We were the only kids on the block. So, this happened on Christmas. It was the afternoon and it had just snowed a lot. I mean, a ton of snow. Everything was white and there were no footprints anywhere. We wanted to find a big crazy hill to go sledding. So we walked off, away from our houses, away from the road. I finished my sentence and then I just stood there, unable to talk. Anne started to look uncomfortable. So? She tried. Did you find a hill? I don't know, I said. I remember walking. I remember all the snow, making snow angels and snowmen, all of us laughing. But then, I don't know. I woke up and all I knew was that it was dark. I was alone and I was really cold. Really cold. I stood up and I fell over something. I looked down and I felt my voice catch. It was Julie. She was dead in the snow. Oh my God, Anne whispered. I walked in the dark and eventually some search team found me. They'd been looking all over for us. I told them about Julie. I had to go to the hospital. I had hypothermia and really bad frostbite. They thought I was going to lose my toes. Oh my God, Matt. I'm so sorry. It wasn't your fault. I tried to smile. Don't worry about it. I still have all my toes. 10 out of 10 non-amputated. Would not amputate again. She forced a laugh, and then I continued. They found Brandon. He was at some train tracks later that night. He was okay, but he was like me. No memory of anything that happened. Oh, and he lost a toe. Is Brandon your friend who... Yeah, the one who... last year. On Christmas. That's why Samantha came back. There's going to be a memorial. Oh, she didn't tell me. I mean, that's a weird thing to say. But what happened to her? Where did they find her? They didn't, I said, after taking a breath. Not then, at least. The cops were looking for her. There were billboards. They put her face everywhere. But that was it. She was gone. My parents were convinced something had happened, that I was covering for her, that there must have been a guy. It was a mess. Until March, that is. when we got a call that Samantha was in Canada and that she was okay. She was found standing in the middle of the Mackenzie Highway, way up in the Northwest Territories, in the middle of nowhere. It was snowing, and she was wearing the same clothes she had on when she disappeared. She was healthy, and she didn't remember anything. What? I know, it didn't make any sense. But we were so happy that she was back, we didn't really care. Ever since she came back, she hated the snow, hated the cold. She went to college in Florida. That's why she lives in Singapore, I guess. Yeah, I nodded. She found some banking job and went there. She told me she was never coming back. But I guess she made an exception for Brandon. Holy shit, Anne breathed. How have you not told me all this? I figured that once we were together a year and you felt trapped with me, I would share my terrifying childhood memory. Haha, look at us, she said, 2 months ahead of schedule. She leaned in and we kissed, and then she was in her car, pulling out and waving goodbye. I just stood there in the parking lot for a moment, illuminated in the vanishing red brake lights. When I walked back into the bar, Sam was playing pool with Liam, and somebody had put money into the jukebox. Thumpety thump thump, thumpety thump thump, look at old Frosty go. The next day was Christmas Eve. It was cold, but dry and sunny. My mum made breakfast and my dad tried to be funny but wasn't. I could tell how happy they were, and it killed me. You never want to notice when your parents are happy, because then you realize all the other times they aren't. I spent most of the day running around, buying last-minute presents. The mall was a vast nightmare with a hideous hellbound parking lot. That I made it out alive, much less with gifts, shocked me. I drove home in the cold, the stereo blaring, "We Need a Little Christmas," as I merged out of the horrible traffic and onto Route 36. That night was quiet. Samantha seemed okay, mostly smiling politely, not really talking. My parents went to bed early. Sam poured a glass of wine, and then we talked. Mostly about her work, a bit about her apartment, what life was like living in a different country. We were talking for so long, I hadn't even noticed how late it was. Hey, it's midnight, I said. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, she said back, and then stood up to walk across the living room to the front bay window. I could see the ragged red-green glow of Christmas lights gleaming. And then, something else. Snowflakes. Big and white, and glittering in the holiday lights. It's snowing? I asked. Samantha didn't say anything. She didn't even turn around. But I could see her shoulders tense. She dropped her wine glass, and it landed with a soft, wet thud on the off-white carpet, its red color spreading slowly. I knew, she said. I knew this would happen. I have to get out of here. Sam, wait. There isn't anything to... The next thing that happened was her turning around and hitting me as hard as she could in the face. I stumbled backward and fell, hitting what I later discovered was the coffee table. Everything vanished, all at once. When I woke up, the living room was deserted. Everything felt quiet, like I was the only person alive. I stood up and I looked about the room. The wine was still staining the carpet. Snow was still falling outside. From my angle, I could see the time on the microwave in the kitchen was glowing, 3:15. My car keys weren't in the bowl next to the door. I opened up the front door and cold air ran into the house, into my lungs. My car was not outside. I started to walk down the snow-covered street. I knew she would be driving to get to the highway, to get to the airport, to get away from the snow. Almost an hour of walking, I saw it. My car, smashed into a guardrail. Its headlights were still on. There was something that looked like red wine splattered on the snow outside the car. I followed it until I found Samantha, laying cold and dead and frozen in the cold ground. Traumatic brain injury, the cops told us. They see it a lot. Someone in a single car accident hits their head, wanders off, bleeds out. Tragic, yes, but exceptional, no. But me, I knew. When I went to her corpse, with her blue lips caked in blood, I saw the snow in her mouth, like she'd been eating it, or like it had been shoved in. I knew what happened. The day we vanished, something else happened. We built a snowman. Typing this makes me feel weird, like an idiot. Everyone builds snowmen. But this one? After we built it, Julie shoved 2 black rocks in its face to make eyes. I looked at it, and it felt like something bad had happened. Something wrong. There were crows above us, in the bright, blue, unlimited sky. They were flying in a circle, getting smaller and smaller. I started getting dizzy, and there was a wind, out of nowhere, blowing hard, raising the white powder into the air until I couldn't see. I could just hear Julie starting to scream. And I swear, I saw something giant beginning to come alive. That was the last thing I remember, which was more than Brandon could, and Samantha never wanted to talk about it. Until last year, after Brandon was found dead in the snow, she called me. She was drunk, and she wasn't making any sense. She kept babbling on about how she tried to help the snowman, even after what he did to Julie. She said that he was just confused and she wanted to save him. She took him to Canada on a train, headed to the North Pole where it would always be winter. But things got messed up, Matt, she said, her voice sounding like she was trying not to cry. They got real messed up. It wasn't good. He let me go, but he told me that he could come back. Any Christmas that it snowed, that he could always come back. And he did.